All right, shalom once again, and welcome to lesson 8. This coming Sunday, because of the Torah marathon at Yeshiva, I will not be able to teach the Hebrew class, so this is lesson 8. Lesson 8. And let's get started with lesson 8. Let me start shifting stuff around on my workstation and to open the textbooks. All right, sharing my screen. And we're going to go into the Aleph Beith textbook. All this stuff is from the previous lesson I've just uploaded. So I'm going to have to erase my board a little bit. It's been a beautiful week in Johannesburg so far. Actually, not a beautiful week, but a beautiful 2 or 3 days. It's winter in the middle of winter, but it's very nice. It's 20 degrees outside. It's nice and warm and sunny. Altogether, a beautiful day. All right. Our board is nice and clean. Now we're going to go into Aleph Beith lesson 4. For those people who might think that we are going very, very slowly, you can see now that that's not the case. We're not going very slowly. We are actually going at a good pace. We're in lesson 4 after 8 lessons. I think we're doing good. And here we have subject pronouns. It says here in Hebrew, well, according the way Hebrew is taught in English, it says subject pronouns have singular and plural forms and distinguish between masculine and feminine in the second and third persons. For example, ata, which means you, is a singular second person when speaking to a man, and at is a singular second person when speaking to a woman. Likewise, atem is you when speaking to a group of men or in a mixed group of men and women, and aten when you're speaking specifically to a group of women. The first person pronoun I and we are the same regardless of the gender of the speaker. There are two versions of the pronoun I that appear in the Hebrew Bible. The first common one is ani, and the second one is aniki. Also appears frequently. There's no clear difference in the meaning between these two. All right, so what I have discovered is that in modern Hebrew, people are going to laugh at you. People are going to laugh at you when you say aniki. They're not going to laugh at you because they're stupid, but because it's so uncommon in modern Hebrew to say aniki. The common one is ani, ani, aniki. What's the difference between the two? There's no difference, but aniki has got a kamatz, so it's a long A sound. Aniki. And ani has got a short kamatz, a chatav, not a kamatz, patach, a chatav patach, which is a half patach. So it's not ani, it's ani, it's a short A. Ani, which means me or I, or aniki. But you're not going to see this one a lot in modern Hebrew, but it's all over the Bible, as it says here that it's very common in biblical Hebrew, which is what we are concerned with mostly. We are mostly concerned with biblical Hebrew so that we can be able to read the Bible, even though we are going to go into the modern Hebrew a little bit today as well. Just a side thought, we are still going to do gematria. We are still going to learn Milui and all these other forms of gematria. We're going to learn them. But I want you to be patient and just follow my lead at the moment. If you want to learn other things outside of this classroom, you're willing to do that. You can go find any other resource that you want. Here, I'm not going to give you a certificate because I am also learning Hebrew. So I'm sharing with you what I'm learning. If you are impatient or if you want a formalized learning, you can go and contact the Israeli Institute of Biblical Studies or the Rosen School of Hebrew. Then you can get a certificate. I'm going to get my certificate later on, maybe next year, once I can read the Bible and I can read rabbinic literature, I'll go get my certificate just for the fun of it and get my 3 credits. But right here, I just want to learn the language first. This is how I learn languages. I don't just go to school and get a certificate, but how I learn languages is I learn the language by myself, and then I go to school and I learn it. Then it becomes perfect, and then I get a certificate. Because the whole motive is not the certificate, is to know the language and to master the language. So here we have the use of the pronoun I in the singular. We have here singular masculine and singular feminine. So this ani or aniki, we have it in okay. So it's a pronoun I, ani, aniki, and then in the feminine, actually that's a plural there. Let's not go there. Let's stick with singular. And then we have you because the verb is to be in English. And then it's I in Hebrew, ani, aniki. And then you, the second person, is at if you are a woman. If you're talking to a woman, you say at, right? At Sarah, you are Sarah, for example. Ata Yoram, for example, you are Yoram in the masculine. So when you're talking to a man and you're saying you, it is ata. When we pray to Hashem in Hebrew, if you can pray in Hebrew so far, and you say, "Oh God, you are holy," you're gonna say ata kadosh, because God, we attribute the pronoun he and the masculinity to God, to Ein Sof. And then if it's a woman, it's at. If we're talking about he or she, which is the third person, singular, who, Adonai, who, wa Elohim. Or we can say Adonai hu melech, a better example. There's hu melech, Adonai is king. We are saying Adonai, he is king, hu melech. And then a woman, Sarah, he Isha Avram. Sarah, he Isha Avram. So this he, it means Sarah, she is Abraham's wife. That is the singular construct. Now we come to the plural. When we say we, feminine, we have here feminine and masculine. So the women, when the women are talking about themselves, they also use ani and aniki. This is not gender specific. And also when we say we, anachnu, not anachnu. There's a hataf patach here, hataf patach, which is a half patach, which means it's a half a sound. Anachnu, which means anachnu, we, or anachnu. And then we have here gender-specific pronouns like atem, which is you, the second person. When we're talking about the second person, we're talking about men, and it's plural. Atem means you, masculine. It means to men, atem. To women, aten. For women or speaking to women, it is aten. And then they, as a collective, would say hem to masculine. And then to women, it is henna. Okay? Hem, henna. Shalom Aleichem. I don't know if Aleichem actually is meant to be like this. No, Aleichem is something else. So just hem as a standalone word means they, speaking to men, and this is they, henna, or henna, because it's got a dagesh. Henna means women, they. Hem, men. It's got a dagesh, the tav has got a dagesh here for you. Aten, because of the dagesh. Aten, atem. Aten, because the tav has got a dagesh. Here we have at, because of the dagesh. At, we pretend as if there's a double tav. Okie dokie. One thing you will notice is that learning Hebrew in English is quite complicated because Hebrew and English are not the same. So the explanations of Hebrew and English are very strange. And then we have here verbless clauses. It says, just like the sentences in the previous lesson, the sentences in this lesson are verbless. In Hebrew, a simple clause can be formed by juxtaposing the subject and the complement that describes it, with no verb necessary. The complement may be a noun, as in one, or an adjective, as in two. Okay, these are now examples, 1 and 2. In later lessons, we will also see prepositional phrases in verbless clauses to describe the location of the subject. So we've got 2 examples here. At this point in time, I would like you to pause this video, pause the video, and try and read these sentences 1 and 2 in Hebrew. Just pause the video, try and read these sentences. I assume you paused the video and now you're resuming. So let's read. In English, it says, you are a donkey. It says in Hebrew, ata chamor. Ata chamor. Remember, the dagesh, the dot in the middle of tav, asks us to pronounce tav as if it was a double T. So it's ata chamor, which means you are a donkey. Literally in Hebrew, it says you donkey, which is actually normal because the Hebrew construct, according to the modern Hebrew textbook, the sentence construct is very simple. It's subject plus verb. So this simple subject plus verb is what we see here. Ata chamor, you donkey. Me, human, you donkey. This is how Hebrew sounds like in English. So, but why does it say verb? Why doesn't it say noun? It's because in Hebrew, davar is a thing. It can be a word or a verb. It can be a noun or an action word. So we keep the formula to subject plus verb for simple sentences, like this one. And then number 2 says, ata katon. Ata katon. Chamatz is a short A. Ata, batach is a short A. Chamatz is a long A. Ata katon. It's a long sound. Ata katon, which means you small in bad English. You small, but correct Hebrew. And then in English, we have to put you are small because we are still following the subject plus verb way of constructing sentences. Why do we have sentence formulas? Why do we have formulas? In English, we also have a formula. Why do we have sentence formulas in English? So in Anglit, so English in Hebrew is Anglit. In Anglit, which is English, we have a subject plus verb plus predicate. This is how we think in English. Formulas are because of thought. How you speak a language is a consequence of how you think. So in English, subject plus verb plus predicate is the most simple English structure. So in English, we say subject is you plus verb of to be, second person you are, plus the predicate, which is the rest of the sentence, you are a lazy donkey. Okay, this is not, I'm not swearing at anyone, I'm not insulting anyone. I'm just making an example. So the predicate in English is the rest of the sentence. So when I think in English, I must think about three different things when I think in English. I must think about the subject, the verb, and the predicate, and then I open my mouth and I speak. In Hebrew, it's a little bit different. So in Ivrit, which is Hebrew in Hebrew, in Ivrit, we have the subject, which is also a noun plus verb. That's what the textbook says. So let's consult the textbook again. The textbook says subject plus verb. And you understand that a subject can also be the noun, isn't it? So subject or the noun plus verb. So we can speak delicious English in Hebrew and say, you donkey. I think Chinese also sounds the same. You donkey, me human, So this is how thought works. This is what I'm trying to explain, that we need formulas to express thought. All right, so let's go back. So what is the thought here? The thought here is that the second person is a donkey. You donkey. Ata chamor. If I want to think and say, oh God, you are holy, I'm going to say Ata kadosh. So when you hear these Hebrew expressions, Ata kadosh, Ata melech, etc., when you hear these wonderful Hebrew music and songs, is because the thinking is very simple. You plus verb. Ata chamor or Ata kadosh in biblical material. You are small. Ata katon. In biblical material, you might find Ata gadol, which means God is great. In some literature, in some places in the Bible, you might find that, or in music. And it says in some contexts, we may also see the complement come first and the subject afterwards. What on earth is a complement? Okay, let's see. I want you to stop the video again. If possible, please stop the video and read sentences 1 and 2. I want you to try and read them. So pause the video and read these sentences. And then after a few seconds, we're going to read them together. All right. Assuming that uh, assuming that you have paused your video and read, let's read together. This part means to say, what is she? It says in Hebrew, mahi, like a fish, mahi mahi, mahi, mahi. What is she? And then um, we can say he, he achot Yoram. He achot Yoram, which would mean she is Yoram's sister, right? Just making an example. But mahi, what is she? The second sentence says, Isha ketana he. So here the answer is very strange. It says, a small woman is she. Or she is a small woman in English. Isha ketana he. If it was a male, if it was a man, it would be ish katon hu. But because it's female, it's isha ketana he. Isha, this part is female. This A, this is kamatz maleh, a full kamatz. So we have a kamatz with a chametz that's accompanied by a hey. So that gives us the feminine. And then we have ketana, this keta. The diphthong is broken. We have female sounds, ketana. And then, of course, the hey. And then we have he, which means her. We have here the chirik maleh, which is a complete chirik, which is the dot that's accompanied by a yod. Isha ketana. So we've made this completely female. It said here, in some contexts, you may also see a complement come first and then the subject afterwards. So what is the complement here? And then the subject. It says here, ma. So I guess the complement is the accompaniment in English. So a complement in Hebrew, it does not mean the same thing in English. Complement in Hebrew, it must be an accompaniment. An accompaniment in English. That's something to know. So we're going to say here, nota bene. Nota bene che questa cosa è importante. That's Italian. That's where we get nota bene from Italian, because something is important perché una cosa è importante. So nota bene, note well, nota bene. One day if you want to learn Italian, must let me know. We'll learn Italian. Unfortunately, those lessons are not free. If you want to learn from me Italian and Spanish, or if you want to take your English to a higher level, unfortunately, I do charge money for those lessons. They're not like Hebrew lessons. They're not free. The reason why I don't charge for Hebrew lessons is because I'm also learning Hebrew. So I would be robbing you if I charge you money for my time for also learning Hebrew. But for the other languages that I already have developed and well established, that's my daily job, by the way. I teach languages, and so those ones you would have to pay for. All right, so they left some notes for us to help us. They say key helps. The conjunction key, which means for or if or therefore, it has many translations in different contexts. Yes, we know. But here it marks a counter statement after a negative statement. Okay, so it is a contradiction then. Not a conjunction, but a contradiction to on the contrary, or but rather, or instead. So instead of a conjunction, we're going to call it a contradiction. Just remember in your words, it contradicts the negative. Key contradicts the negative. Lesson 5, we are going to be learning family terms. Before we go to family terms, let's go to modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew, I touched on a little bit, and also the sentence structure in the previous video, in the previous lesson, which was last Sunday. Let's go to lesson 2, or part 2, or lesson 2, I guess, of modern Hebrew. And it says the simplest sentences in Hebrew are me Tarzan, you Jane. What does it mean, you Tarzan, me Jane? Is because in Hebrew, there is no verb. We are not, it's not necessary to use a verb in Hebrew thought. For example, in English, when we think in English, in Anglit, we say subject, verb, and predicate in a simple sentence, which is you are a lazy donkey. We don't need this in Hebrew. We just say you lazy donkey or you donkey, right? We sound like Mr. Miyagi in Hebrew, translated into English. Now, let's go to modern Hebrew and get some examples. Oh, it says here, for sentences of the type, for example, Yoram is tired, comma, the falafel is cold. The thinking is, I want to take a noun and add to the noun the verb to be plus an adjective. And it says Hebrew commonly omits the verb. So in Hebrew, the verb, the second person verb, is usually omitted. What does this mean? It says here, hafalafel kar, hafalafel kar, which means the falafel is cold. So let's go and pretend as if we know something, of which we do by now, of course, but you know me. So let's go and write ha falafel kar. In English, we are saying the falafel is cold. In English, the falafel is cold. What's different about Hebrew and English? We omit the verb. So in English, we take out the verb is. We say the falafel cold, which is there. In Hebrew, in English, we have there, which is the definite article. The definite article is there. In Hebrew, ha with a patach. This is the definite article in Hebrew. We call it the DA. So ha falafel kar. This is the adjective now. So we're going to call this one the adjective, because that's what it is. In English, the adjective is cold. There's the English adjective. One thing we don't have here is, one thing that's missing in the Hebrew side is the English verb is, which in Hebrew is who, he, or hua, is missing. But we don't need it, because in Hebrew it is subject plus verb equals a complete sentence. We don't need a verb in Hebrew. So we can say ha falafel kar. First comes the verb, the subject, which is the falafel, which is also the noun. So in Hebrew, the subject is equal to the noun, and then we add the adjective. And then we have a sentence. Ha falafel kar. The falafel is cold. Let's go look at another sentence that we can play around with. It says here, these falafels are cold in English, because we have to use a verb. In Hebrew, we say, ha-falafelim ha'ele karim. Ha-falafelim ha'ele karim. So I want you to notice something before we talk about these falafel. I want you to know something, that here, here you are reading with nikud or nikudim. Here you are reading with nikud, ha-falafel. There's kamatz, sorry, there's patach, 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 segol, patach. Ha-fa-la-fel kar. There's vowels. You're reading with vowels. Here, in our example, there are no vowels. It's just hey Fei, Lamed, Kaf or Kuf, Reish. So you are learning to read without Nikudim. Ha, fa, la, fel, kar. There's no dagesh in the pei or the fei. So how do you know if it's pei or fei? It's because you memorize and you learn the word and its pronunciation. You learn the word structure, which is ha, is a definite article on its own. And then falafel is one word and it's spelled patach patach segol. You memorize it. Kar means cold. Its construction is kaf reish with a kaf with a patach. Ha falafel. So once you memorize ha falafel, how it's spelled, then you can write it and read it without nikudim. So you write it like this. Ha, wait, other way around. My brain still wants to write from left to right. So let's go. Ha, fa, la, fel, kar. There's no nikudim, but I can read ha falafel because I've memorized both the construct and the pronunciation. The next sentence is ha falafelim ha ele karim. So now we have a plural. We have here on the side the definite article ha. And then we have falafel, which is the noun that we're talking about, falafel. But the falafel now are many, more than one, so we put a chirik male, a complete chirik, which is a dot and a yod and a mem to show plurality or the plural. Hafalafelim ha'ele, which means these. So let's go right together and we say hafalafelim haze, no, ha'ele, not haze. So it will be Aleph Lamed Hey. So we have a Resh. Hafalafel Hazeh Karim. Let's go read in the original. Hafalafel Lim, not Hazeh, Ha'ele. I beg your pardon. Let's go back. Sorry, my mistake. Hafalafelim Ha'ele Karim. So here we have Hafalafelim ha'ele karim. In the original form, ha is the definite article. This is now the construct. And it has a patach. Another patach, hafala. Another patach, fel, segol, lim, chirik, male, with the dot and the yod, and then a im, the m for the im, showing plural, ha'ele, which means these. Ha'ele means in English these. All right? In Spanish, son esos. Esos falafelim o esos falafelim están fríos in Spanish. In English, those falafels are cold. But Hebrew says the falafels, these are cold. These falafels are cold. So Hebrew is a bit counterintuitive. So there you have it. Ha'ele is got a kamatz. It's got a half segol, hataf segol, and then it has a full segol. This is a full segol, hataf segol, and then we have another kamatz, and then we have another chirik maleh. So we have the vowels a, e, a, I. Hafalafelim, ha'ele, karim. Pretty cool, isn't it? Let's move on. And then it says in this textbook, alternatively, this is now modern Hebrew, alternatively, especially after a longish subject like kol, kol hafalafelim ha'ele, which means all these falafels, Hebrew often inserts the particles of being. What on earth are particles of being? They say like he, who, hen, and hem. These so-called particles or particles of being, which I don't recognize in English, these are just pronouns, right? In the first person, second person, third person. This is the verb to be. I, you, they, we are, etc. But in Hebrew, they call them particles of being, which confuses the living lights out of me. I don't even know what they're saying, but in English, just know it's the verb to be in its different conjugations. Which one is chosen depends on whether the subject is masculine or singular or plural. If I were you, I would highlight this in my own textbook. Let's look at the examples of these particles of being. For example, Yoram Shelanu Hu Ayef, which means our Yoram is tired. Yoram Shelanu. This word Shelanu means our. Shelanu means our. Kulanu, which means to us, right? To us, kulanu. Shelanu means ours. Anachnu means we. We, anachnu. Kulanu to us. Shelanu, ours. Yoram, shelanu, who, which means he. Who means he is. Who, ayef, which means is tired. So let's see. We have a cholem here. We have a cholem, which is the dot on top of vav here. That's a cholem. That's the O sound. And then we have kamatz in underneath reish. So we have the name Yoram, which is a boy's name. Shelanu, Shelanu, which means our. He is Hua Ayef or Ayef in the proper pronunciation because Ain is not an A sound, it's Ain, Ayef. So Shelanu Hua Ayef. This is O A E A U U A E A Yoram Shelanu Hu Ayef. So let's go write it down. So we have Yoram, Shelanu, Ayef. All right, so this is the third part of the sentence. This is the second part of the sentence. This is the first part of the sentence. So now we are reading without nikud. Yoram Shelanu Ayef. There's no vowels. So we have Yoram, which is part of our subject or our noun, plus this interesting concept that we have learned Ah, I've missed something. I've missed something. We missed this part here. So we have, let me put these in a different color. It's good for our brains to see different colors. That's why, as a human being, I'm not racist and I refuse to be racist because I grew up in apartheid South Africa and I know what racism is. Racism is a disease. Once you allow racism to come into your life or to treat people with partiality because they're different colors, then the disease called racism gets stuck to you and you become a racist unconsciously or consciously. So as a South African, I know all the lessons. I grew up in the most racist country in the world. And therefore, in my life and in my existence, I make sure that I see the full spectrum and I interact with the full spectrum of God's light, which are all the people of the world and all the different colors and shades and languages. My soul is like the garment of Yosef, different colors. So even when I teach, I use different colors. Otherwise, my world is not complete. So we have here Yoram Shelanu, he Ayef, which means our Yoram is tired. So we have our Yoram is tired. So our Yoram, our is a designation. What do we call this again in English? Is it a demonstrative pronoun? Woohoo! So we have demonstrative pronoun, which is our, and then we have plus Yoram, who is our noun, and then we have is, which is our verb. So this is subject, noun, verb, plus predicate, which is the rest of the sentence in English, which means tired. So these are the four parts. In Hebrew, we have these four parts as well. We have Yoram, who is the subject and the noun together. Shelanu, this is our demonstrative pronoun in English, like our. And then we have, but they don't call it a demonstrative pronoun. This is called particle of being. This is so strange to English. Particle of being. This is so strange, but I want you to know it in English as a demonstrative pronoun. And then we have he, which is a personal pronoun. This is a personal pronoun plus the verb is, which we don't have in Hebrew, but we have in English. And then we have the adjective, which is tired. All right. So Yoram, ours, he is tired. Correctly spoken, our Yoram is tired. Yoram Shelanu, he, Ayef, is tired. Okay, so you've learned how to read in Hebrew Yoram or Yoram Shelanu, who, who Ayef, because it's a man, it's not he, sorry, it's who. Yoram Shelanu, who Ayef, and you learned to read this in also in Hebrew, Yoram Shelanu, who Ayef. I did not use Nikodim. I did not use vowels. I'm just reading the consonants without vowels, which is modern Hebrew, especially in rabbinic literature. And here, this is how I learned how to pronounce it, is because I learned the one with Nikud. And the construct of the words, the spelling of the words, plus the vowels allows me to read it without without nikudim or nikud. One last sentence, it says, Ha-falafelim ha'ele hem karim, which also means the same thing. These falafels are cold. But now we have hem. Ha-falafelim ha'ele hem in English is these falafels, okay, because we have these ha'ele. These falafels, they are cold. In West Indian English or in Creolese English from the Caribbean, it says, these falafels, them are cold. These falafels, them are cold. In a Jamaican accent. So this them are cold is it just wants to say that these falafels, they are cold. Which, okay, so we have ha-falafelim, ha-ele, hem. It's almost like a double emphasis that these falafels, specifically, they are cold. Ha-falafelim ha'ele hem karim. Hem means they or them. Ha'ele means these. All right, I hope you learned something. Let's go back to our Aleph Beith, our biblical Hebrew textbook. We're going to do a few more things and then we're going to call it a lesson. Lesson 5, we are learning family terms. This is now biblical Hebrew in Aleph Beith, in the Aleph Beith textbook. When I switch to the Essentials textbook, this is modern grammar or modern Hebrew. All right, so I'm switching between the two so that you will learn how to learn how to read the Bible. Also, you will learn how to read and write modern Hebrew. That's what we've been doing in this lesson. On even speak, which we're going to incorporate later. So we have here Av, which means father. Av is a generic term, okay? These are generic terms. Av and Em, okay? Some people, uh, in their non-generic term, it's Ima and Abba. I have to erase some stuff here, so let me go back up top. So this is lesson 8, and you probably noticed that I'm a very slow teacher. And I do apologize for my slow nature. This is who I am. I'm very, very slow. Even at school, my teachers were very annoyed with me, and I didn't learn very well in high school and primary school because I was very slow. So I started teaching myself and learning when I left high school. When I finished high school, I spent 20 years educating myself because the school or the school system didn't educate me very well because it was not equipped to teach deep thinkers. And usually at school, when I challenged the textbook, the teachers would say, well, I don't know. This is what's in the textbook. You just learn what's in the textbook. And I realized that high school was probably not the place for me to learn. So after high school, I spent 20 years educating myself in every area possible. Languages, how to think, critical thinking, music, general knowledge, many things I learned after high school. Anyways, my point of me telling you this is that if you're in my classroom and you're learning Hebrew and you think I'm very slow and my voice is very irritating, I am so sorry. You're stuck with me, but if you listen, I promise you, you will learn something. So thank you for your patience in advance. So we have Av. Let's go to the beginning of the paper here. We have Av and we have Em. So usually when people, Av means obviously father. When you talk to your father, you say Abba. So the diphthong breaks. You break the diphthong of Av and it becomes Abba. And then you break the diphthong of M and you call your mom Ima. Ima. and Abba. Of course, I don't think there's a rule that says you cannot call your mom M and you say M. It's the same thing. Or Av is the same thing. But commonly, the diphthong is broken and we have Abba, which is the father, which is Av, and Ima. We have Av, father, and M, mother. Ima, Abba. And then we have Ben. Ben is a generic term because the son comes from the father and the mother. So we have Ben, which means son. We have Bat, which means daughter. Mashiach ben Yosef is the son of Joseph. Uh, we can say uh, we can say so if a person converts to Judaism, for example, we can say uh, Sarah bat Avraham. Bat Avraham means the son of Abraham. Even though I have Israelite heritage that is clear, I still took the name of Abraham as a like a convert because I love my father Abraham. So my Jewish surname is Ben Abraham. Ben Abraham, son of Abraham. My sister's surname is going to be Bat Abraham, which means the son of Abraham. And then, of course, a second daughter is also Bat. But between the siblings, these are the siblings in English. So between the siblings, between a boy and a girl siblings, the boy is ach to the woman, to the bat, to the girl. The boy is ach. Ach means brother. Ach is brother. But between two sisters, they use the word achot between the two of them. And if this girl wants to interact with her brother, okay, she will say ach. If the brother wants to interact with this sister, he will say achot. Interesting thing about achot, it's in a plural construct. Achot is a plural feminine construct. Like Elohim. Elohim is a singular plural construct. Elohim because it has chirik male, Elohim. Here we have achot. It's feminine, ot, feminine construct, but it doesn't mean sisters as in plural. It's one sister, achot. That was useful. In the next lesson, we are going to be looking at 5.1, the possessive pronoun suffixes. I wish you a wonderful Shabbat, full of peace, Shabbat Shalom, and many blessings through the Torah marathon that will happen on Sunday. I will see you the other Sunday of the 28th, I think. We'll have our next Hebrew lesson on the 27th, actually. Sunday the 27th. So Shabbat Shalom. I wish you only good things for you and your families. I wish you progress in reading the Tanakh and reading your prayers. May Hashem bless you always. Leitraot. Until